Hello everyone and welcome to the Bearded Geeks, the weekly grab bag of topics covering movies, comics, video games and TV. My name is Jages, I'm the Beard Master and we're kicking it today here in the Beard Cave. We're doing another review. We're kind of getting on like the fortnightly review chain here at the moment, you know, with both guys off at the moment being dads, you know, the three of us, we are the Bearded Geeks, we are the Bearded Geeks podcast, but both of them had kids recently, so we're on, you know, this kind of kid rotation at the moment. Pat's been away for a long time. He's off doing the dad thing, he's got a pair of kids at home. He's doing the work thing, he's doing the Marvel thing, and Bobby's kind of here on a fortnightly schedule at the moment. But it's all good because it does give me a chance to sort of sit here on my own and talk about stuff like I might not necessarily be able to talk about while the other guys are around. Because we don't really want to spoil stuff, like for anyone else. Like back when we did our Blade Runner 2049 episode, Bob hadn't seen it, so he had to leave the room while we talked about Blade Runner. And then, yeah, I come back afterwards, so... You know, there are other things I want to talk about in the future. I want to do, like, comics and stuff and that if I'm on my own in the Beard Cave. You know, it gives me, like I said, that chance to talk about stuff I might necessarily, you know, not get a chance to talk about. But, you know, today we're going to talk about Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom. I saw it earlier today. I was going to leave the review for, like, a day or two, let it sit and digest with me. But I just had too much running through my head. And I'm like, fuck it, we'll just go in there and we'll just do the normal thing. I'm just going to digest it as we go. And I'm just going to unpack it to you guys, but today I'm just going to go full spoilers from the get-go, so if anybody hasn't seen it, they want to watch it without it being spoiled, tune out now, because we're going to go full spoilers from the get-go, so might just be a little bit of a shorter episode today, but you know, that's okay, they don't all have to be hour-and-a-half marathons every week, so let's get started. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom opened, what, 4 or 5 days ago? I don't think it's opened completely in the US just yet. I think they had like a staggered release after us, which was interesting because I think last time, the first Jurassic World, they might have gotten it before us. Doesn't really matter though. It just means we get to enjoy it sooner. So, what can I say about the Jurassic franchise? I mean, we're all there in the 90s. I mean, us 90 kids and that anyway, like us 80s and 90s kids, we were there in the beginning, like this epic cultural phenomenon. Jurassic Park came out in 1993, it was the biggest thing. I never saw it in the cinema as a kid. Some of my cousins saw it and they were like freaked out by T-Rexes looking through car windows and stuff, and they absolutely loved it. I didn't get a chance to see it, but my parents did take, you know, myself and my brother and sister and that. They took us to the cinema and we saw The Lost World. And they took us to see Jurassic Park 3 as well. When was that? 2001, I think it was. So I was 15, 16 or whatever. My parents took me to see that as well. And you know what? Love those movies. Love bloody Jurassic Park. Love dinosaurs. I always loved dinosaurs since I was a kid. And yeah, love those flicks. The big, like, cultural phenomenon that is the Jurassic franchise. So after Jurassic Park 3, it went away. It went away for a long time. Went away for nearly 15 years before they brought it back with Jurassic World in 2015. Now, I did like Jurassic World at the time. It was a great popcorn flick. It was a massive throwback to the first Jurassic Park film. A lot of people would say it pretty much is that film, and it is, really. But you know what? I dig that movie. It's fun. It's a silly popcorn movie. It's bright, and it's noisy, and it's great, and I had a good time with it, and it's a really enjoyable movie, and obviously, a lot of people enjoyed it worldwide because it made like $1.6 billion or something like that worldwide. It was obscene how much money that movie made. But I rewatched it the other day, Jurassic World. I just bought it on 4K. And I gotta say, guys, if you want to watch Jurassic World, if you love this movie and you don't own it on 4K, go out and buy it on 4K because it is absolutely spectacular. The transfer on that movie is beautiful, like the CG, the colors, the HDR, all of it. It's absolutely stellar. And the sound, my god, the sound, like your bass will explode by like these big Indominus Rex footsteps and roars and explosions, and it looks amazing. It sounds amazing. It is the best way to watch Jurassic World. So if you haven't seen it on 4K and you've got a 4K player, you've got a 4K TV, and you like Jurassic World, you have no excuse. You've got to go out and buy that movie and watch it because it is the best way to watch that movie. And watching it again the other day, it just made me realize I really like that movie. You know, I like it. It's a silly popcorn movie. The Indominus Rex is really cool. It's got enough new stuff in there. The CG is great. The T-Rex is back. You know, it's not a it's not a, it's not a Schindler's List or a Citizen Kane or anything like that. But for what it is, it's really great. Like, I enjoyed that movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like that movie. It's not my favorite movie of all time, but yeah, I dig it. It's a good watch. I'll sit down and watch it again. Chris Pratt's great. Bryce Dallas Howard's great. I like Bryce Dallas Howard. She's very, she's got that whole redhead thing going. I dig her, I do dig Bryce Dallas Howard. She's very cool. Not a big fan of her outfit in that movie, though. I was just like, couldn't they get her, like, a nice suit jacket? Maybe some pants? No high heels? But that doesn't matter. That movie's been and gone. That was 3 years ago. So now we're back. Jurassic Park, Fallen World, the sequel to Jurassic World. I just said Jurassic Park. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. Let's hit it with the story. So, it's been 3 years since Jurassic World went apeshit. Indominus Rex got out. A lot of people got killed, no doubt. People getting eaten. Mr. Maserati, or whatever his name is, bloody got killed in a helicopter crash and stuff. All these people who were injured or people who died in the Jurassic World incident, they're suing the fuck out of that company. There are all these damages and payouts and that. $800 million worth of payouts to all these people for that day at Jurassic World where everything went pear-shaped and all these dinosaurs got out. So now we're dealing with the aftermath of that. All these dinosaurs are pretty much living on this island and they've been thriving for 3 years. But now there's a volcano on the island, which was previously dormant, is now active, and it's going to explode at any minute. So at the beginning of the film, we've got like a lot of news coverage and stuff, and it's like, we've created all these dinosaurs. They're treating them more like animals, just like straight up animals in this film. So like, what do we do? We've created these animals. We've brought them back from extinction. They're de-extinct because of us. We brought them back, but what are we going to do? Do we just let them die on that island? Do we just let nature wipe the slate clean, all the mistakes we've made? Ian Malcolm seems to think so. He has his speech at Congress and that, like a congressional hearing at the beginning of the film. You've seen it in the trailers. Ian Malcolm scenes, they're pretty much... You've seen 90% of his scenes in the trailers. If you've seen all the trailers, you've seen about 90% of his footage where he's in the film. He probably has an extra couple of lines here and there, extra couple of camera angles and that, but that's pretty much it. He appears for a few seconds at the start and a few seconds at the end of the film. But yeah, it's up to these people. Like, we're going to decide, like, what are we going to do with these animals? Should we save them? Should we move them? Or do we just let them go the way of the dinosaur again and just become extinct? So Bryce Dallas Howard's Claire. She's back. And she runs this, a dinosaur protection group or something like that. And she's trying to reach out to all these companies and that to get funding so they can go in and they can save these dinosaurs and they can relocate them. And then she gets a call from this guy, this big businessman dude, Sir Lockwood. Lockwood, played by James Cromwell. And he's offered to, fund to save these dinos and that, to go to the island and save, some of these species and that, and bring them back, relocate them. They have this sanctuary island prepared, this self-contained ecosystem where these dinosaurs can live, they can be transported there, and they can live and they can stay there, and they'll be okay, and life will find a way, and they'll be okay. So she goes to this guy, he lays down the plan. They say, we want to save 11 different species. More if we can, but we want to save Blue from the first film. Blue, the Velociraptor, because she's the last of her kind, and we need her. Like, she's the last of the species. She's a very special dinosaur. We need to save her. We don't know if we can get her. You're the expert, Claire. What do we do? Well, you're not going to get her because she's going to smell you from a mile away. You're not even going to get close. Why don't you try Owen Grady, Chris Pratt? Go and get him. He was the raptor wrangler. Go and get him. He has a connection with Blue. Go and get him, and he can be the one that goes and gets her. So Claire goes in to convince Owen to come back to the island. Eventually he does. They go there, and the volcano's going to blow. They're against the clock, and they're going to save all these dinosaurs and that. And if you've seen the trailers, they do save a lot of dinos. But then we find out that, oh no, the company's all nefarious and shit, and they have ulterior motives because it's all about the money. They want to make the money. Selling dinos, creating dinos, and selling them off to the highest bidder and stuff. And then the second half of the film turns into more, Honestly, it's more of a monster movie. It's more of a creature feature, but you know, it's more of it's a gothic horror as well, because the second half of the film takes place at like the Lockwood estate, like this 5-story mansion, like out in the middle of like the North Carolina woods or something like that. It's kind of this isolated place. It's raining, it's dark, and there's this lighthouse just not far away, which drowns this mansion in light, you know, every so often with every rotation and that. And yeah, the second half is more of a horror film. So that's pretty much the gist of the story. So, save the dinos. Second half, the bad guys have ulterior motives about these dinos, and then yeah, shit goes down. When you break it down, this movie pretty much is The Lost World. Like Jurassic World was pretty much Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is pretty much The Lost World in a lot of ways, beat for beat. Even some of the characters are exactly the same as some of those characters from that film. They're pretty much cut and paste from The Lost World. So, in The Lost World, there was a second island, Site B. It's where they bred all the dinos and stuff, and then they transported them to Isla Nublar, to where Jurassic Park was. So these dinosaurs have been living and thriving on Site B, so they send like a team there to monitor them, because John Hammond wants to just leave them, just let them be, and see if they're okay in this thriving ecosystem, and then come back and report, tell the rest of the world, yep, they're okay, they're fine, they don't need human intervention, let's just leave them alone. So, Jeff Goldblum, Dr. Ian Malcolm, finds out that his ex-girlfriend, is on this island. She's checking out all these dinos and that. He's going to go there with a team to find her because they haven't heard from her, and he's going to go there and rescue her. But then all of a sudden, InGen bring this big crew to capture all these bloody dinosaurs and bring them back to the mainland because they have another bloody Jurassic Park in, San Francisco, San Diego, or whatever. And it's pretty much, that's what Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is. It's pretty much exactly the same. There is one character, I'll say it here, there is one character played by Ted Levine, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. He plays a character called Ken Wheatley. Now, he is pretty much exactly Roland Tembo from The Lost World, Pete Postlethwaite's character. Roland Tembo in The Lost World was this big game hunter. He was on the island to capture a T-Rex. He wanted to hunt the biggest prey. He's hunted every predator on the planet, and he wanted to hunt the biggest predator that was left that he hasn't, and that was a T-Rex. And that's what he was there on this island for, but he was pretty much in charge of like this expedition as well. This is pretty much exactly what Ted Levine does. Like, when they first go to the island in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, these the crew and that they're with, they're pretty much like the good guys. They're the extraction crew. They're going to help find and capture the dinos and stuff, and then transport them to this new sanctuary, this new ecosystem they've got set up. Spoiler alert, they're not, because they're bad guys and they're taking them back and they're going to sell all the dinos to the highest bidder for other reasons. So, in a lot of ways, this movie is pretty much exactly The Lost World, and I really hope that the next one's not Jurassic Park 3, because that would be awful. So that's pretty much the story. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go along. But let's talk about the characters, because we've got returning characters from the first film in Chris Pratt's Owen Grady and Bryce Dallas Howard's Claire Dearing. Now, the problem I have with this movie is that these two main characters, they're the focal point, obviously. They're our way into the movie. They're returning from the first Jurassic World. Pretty much where they started in the first movie is exactly where they are again in this film. Because in Jurassic World, you know, they went on a date or whatever, and there kind of was a bit of chemistry in that there, but they were kind of a little bit incompatible or whatever, and, you know, it didn't work out. You know, maybe because they were a bit stubborn or a bit pig-headed or whatever, they kind of didn't really match up, but there was something there. And then by the end of the film, after the dinosaur stuff, you know, they're all kissy and stuff, and they're like, we should stay together for survival. And they do. Where this movie picks up is, they're not together anymore. She has to go back and recruit Owen, and then they have this big scene about where they were we were going to live together and live in a caravan or whatever. Oh, you didn't want to live in a caravan on the side of the road. Oh, you wouldn't let me drive it. He's like, because I'm chivalrous and I didn't want you, you know, I'll do all the driving and stuff. So they kind of broke up again. It's kind of that exact same situation. They've just transposed those exact character plots and beats from that first movie and just dropped it again into this one. So in that regard, the movie works lesser for me because the characters haven't really gone anywhere. They're exactly the same characters as from the first film. They haven't come anywhere. They haven't changed at all. They're exactly the same people. So in that regard, the movie is definitely, you know, it's dropped a peg. It really has. Because in a lot of ways, in these first two movies, there's a lot of stuff I love about Jurassic World that didn't pull off as well in this second one. But then, in the same regard, there's stuff that worked better in this one that didn't in the first film. So it's kind of a catch-22. They've kind of reversed roles. So in that regard, it's kind of a bit depressing because I did like those characters in the first movie and that. But in this one, they haven't really gone anywhere. They haven't really done anything, which is just kind of disappointing. Other character in this film, like I said, we've got Ian Malcolm, we've got Jeff Goldblum back. He's literally only in 2 scenes. We've got Rafi Spall, he's the right-hand man to James Cromwell's Sir Benjamin Lockwood. So, Sir Benjamin Lockwood, he originally was, it was him and John Hammond. Their dream was to, like, create these extract all this DNA. They're the one who started the whole dinosaur thing in that together. But they had a falling out for reasons, which we might get to just a little bit later. So, you know, they were hand in hand in the original dinosaur creation. But obviously John Hammond's passed on, and at the Lockwood estate, below, underground in the lower levels, is where they originally started, their DNA extraction and that of the amber. That's where the seeds of Jurassic Park were planted, under that estate. So, when we get there, we find out that, Rafi Spall, he kind of seems like a pretty nice character, like, off the get-go, but you're like, I can tell you're just being overly nice at the beginning, but you're really going to be a shit bloke. And then you find out that, yes, he is a shit bloke because he's using all Lockwood's money to create new dinosaurs that they can sell to, like, you know, military factions or warlords or whatever, because the whole reason they want these dinosaurs is they want to extract these species so they can have an auction and sell off all these live dinos to, like I said, warlords and terrorists and, you know, just bad guys, big game hunters, all these people and that, to make money to fund their projects of creating new species of dinosaurs, which they can then sell. You know, dinosaurs which can be programmed and trained to respond to commands, which is where the Indoraptor comes in. The Indoraptor is the prototype. The Indoraptor is a cross between a Velociraptor and the Indominus Rex, but it is, like Vincent D'Onofrio's character says in the first film about the Indominus Rex, he's like, just imagine this creature, or this dinosaur, a fraction of that size, incredibly intelligent, you know, the military applications behind it. And that's pretty much where they've gone with this film. So, the Indoraptor is this highly intelligent, well-trained, it can be, you know, it responds to, like, laser targeting and audio sound. So, if someone's targeted and it plays this audio frequency in that triggers the Indoraptor to attack a specific target. So that's pretty much the bad guy's plan in this film, to sell off all these dinos to fund all this new research and dinosaur creation, which they're going to do, you know, super trained dinos, crossbreeds and that, which they can sell off to the highest bidder and make even more money. That's all bad guys care about, is money. We got a few other side characters in that in here, Justice Smith and Danielle what's her name? Pineda? Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Danielle. They're side characters. They play Franklin and Zia. So Franklin is kind of like the tech guy, but he's scared of everything, and he's got his bug spray, and he's, you know, why did I go on this expedition? My dad said it would be character building and stuff. And you got Zia, she's the tough, sassy dinosaur vet who's out there and is not scared of guns and gets her hands dirty and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, they kind of feel totally throwaway, to be honest, both of those characters. There's not really much there for them to do. And, you know, probably Zia more so than Franklin. Franklin was meant to be more of a, maybe kind of a comic foil, but, you know, there were a lot of things set up, a lot of scenes in there, set up for us to get an audience laugh from Franklin, but you didn't get any laughs from me, unfortunately. So those characters are kind of throwaway and not really necessary to the plot. The other main person in this is Toby Jones, who plays Gunnar Eversaw. He's kind of like the auctioneer. He runs the auction and that to sell the dinos off. Now, the only thing I got to say about Toby Jones in this is he's great. He's great in everything he does, but I don't know if he's had his teeth done or he was wearing fake teeth. I think he's had his teeth done and he's got like new falsies or something like that, because his teeth just looked overly big, and every time he opened his mouth to speak, that's all I could see. I just stared at his teeth the whole time, so that was very distracting. You know, because the last few things I saw him in was like, you know, Captain America and stuff. They're the kind of the most prominent things that I remember him from. But, you know, I don't recall his teeth being like that in those two films, so he must have had a bit of work done recently. He's got some new, maybe some dentures or falsies or something like that, and they really stand out. They're really noticeable, and my eye was just drawn to them every time he opened his mouth. But you know what? The role he had, he did a good job. So let's talk about the visuals and the effects. Now, there were a lot more practical effects in this. We had practical T-Rex torsos and heads. We had practical velociraptors. We had lots of practical dinosaurs in this. More so, I think there was maybe one scene with the Indoraptor, maybe, that was a practical head or something like that. But most of it was mainly CG. But yeah, mainly like the velociraptors and the T-Rex is where we got most of the practical stuff that I really noticed. And the practical stuff was great. It looked really good. It really gave the actors a lot to work with. There's a scene that's in the trailer where the T-Rex is captured like in this like 60-foot container kind of thing, and Chris Pratt's in there next to its head, and it's opens its eye, and it roars, and he jumps and does his commando roll through its mouth. There's a scene where Bryce Dallas Howard has to jump up onto the T-Rex, and she sits on the back of its neck, which I really found really appealing, because a lot of times with these kind of things, they'll just have, like, a green screen kind of cushion or horse saddle looking thing, which the actors just kind of sit on and pretend they're on the back of a T-Rex. So I really appreciated a nice, practical T-Rex head that she could jump on and actually really interact with. And there's some scenes where, you know, Chris Pratt's just got his hands, like, on the physical T-Rex, and you can really, like, appreciate, like, the realness of it, because there's, like, last year there was a scene in Game of Thrones where, as good as those dragons looked, there's one scene where Jon Snow touches, I think it's Drogon, and he runs his hand over it, and you can just tell it's not real, like, it's not it's not tactile, it's not really happening. He's kind of just running his hand over a green cushion, and they've just, like, done it in CG, and you can just tell it's not, it looks good, but it's not real. There's no real realism in that to it. You can tell it's fake. But in this, I just really appreciated a big, practical T-Rex animatronic that two actors could interact with in one scene. And there's another scene with the raptor, Blue, where they're doing, like, some surgery and stuff on Blue, and you've got these four actors gathered around, you know, touching her on the head and, like, cutting her legs and that open to dig bullets and stuff out. And I just really appreciate it. I just really appreciate the practical effects in this movie. On the flip side of that same coin, CG. Now, I will say about Jurassic World, the CG in that movie was great. The Indominus looked great. The Velociraptors looked absolutely fantastic. The T-Rex looked great. All of it looked great. The Mosasaurus looked great. In this, the T-Rex still looks great in CG. Looks like he's had a bit, I believe, she's had a bit of a tan, because she looks a bit darker. The skin looks a little bit darker and stuff. But the thing that got me is, like, I don't know if this is because I just watched Jurassic World in 4K, and the transfer on that was incredibly impressive, but I really think that the CG for Blue in this was worse than in the last film. I just didn't believe it as much. Maybe because there weren't as many intense close-ups where I could really focus on the CG, and a lot of it kind of took place at night and that as well. Even the scenes she was in like the daytime, like in the jungle kind of areas of Isla Nublar, there were like all these tree canopies and stuff, and just like sunlight sort of just streaking through. So you didn't really get a Velociraptor out in direct sunlight, so you could really sort of appreciate that. But yeah, I just think the CG for Blue in this one was probably a step down from the last film. which is kind of disappointing because aside from that, all the CG looked pretty great. There was a great little pachycephalosaur in this flick. A nice little tiny one. Looked really great. The CG looked great. The CG for the Indoraptor looked pretty good. There was probably one scene, you've seen it in the trailer as well, the little girl, she's backing up to the cage and the Indoraptor's claw kind of comes out and reaches for her. That didn't look as good as some stuff, but there are a lot of scenes in the second half of the film where the Indoraptor is like out on the roof of like the Lockwood estate and it's raining and it looks fantastic. It really does. And the scene where the Indoraptor, the side-on scene of the bed where she's hiding in the bed and the claw kind of reaches over to grab the sheet and the head kind of comes in from the left-hand side, and that looks fantastic. All the Indoraptor stuff actually looks pretty good. Looks really good, actually. So the visuals and the effects were actually pretty good. Really appreciated the balance, the practical, and the CG. The only problem I really had, like I said, the CG on Blue probably wasn't as good as the first film. That's just my personal opinion, though. As for, like, kind of the emotion and that of the film, there was one scene which actually kind of got me, but they kind of really try to sell the dinosaurs in this one as just animals. They're just animals. You know, they deserve to live in that as well. And they kind of put that across pretty well. There's a line at the beginning of the film where Claire says, she's talking on the phone to some congresswoman representative or something like that. She's like, do you have kids? You know, your kids are only young, so the world they've grown up in, we've had dinosaurs. We've had dinosaurs for their entire life, you know. What are they going to think when they're all gone? You know, they've never lived in a world without dinosaurs, so this is normal for them, you know. And that's kind of like, it kind of put my head into that space where, you know, I could relate to that because of the films. So, like, I grew up when Jurassic Park came out, I was 8. And I lived in a world where, you know, I never had dinosaurs, but, you know, we get all these Jurassic Park films. But you can kind of equate that back to the first Jurassic World and that as well, because that made me really angry when I first watched that. And there are all these kids in that movie where, you know, they grew up in a world where dinosaurs already existed, and seeing, like, there's a line, like, seeing a Stegosaurus is like seeing an elephant at the zoo to them. And that made me really angry, like, when I saw the first film in the cinema. Like, all these kids, they're on their phone and they're texting and stuff while all this cool dinosaur stuff is happening. I'm like, why aren't you looking at this? Like, this is amazing. Like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But that's the world they grew up in. Like, they've lived in that world where a Stegosaurus is like an elephant to them. You know, it's normal. It's commonplace. There's nothing extraordinary about it because they've existed longer than they have. So it's just all normal to them. So that one line kind of really sold that for me in that regard. You know, that kind of put like a little bit more stakes in that in there. You're like, yeah, you know, these kids would have grown up in this world. So, you know, to have these dinosaurs wiped out by a volcano, you know, it'd be pretty sad for like these kids that are going to grow up to become adults and, you know, I remember, you know, when there were like T-Rexes and Brachiosaurs and stuff and that, and now they're all gone. We could have done something. You know, we had these amazing creatures. Even though we created them, like, before I was born, you know, they're still animals and they still have a right to live and stuff. So there's kind of this moral quandary in there about whether we should save them or let them go because, you know, we've meddled with stuff that we probably shouldn't have, like genetic manipulation and stuff and that. Is that something we should really meddle with? And, you know, it's kind of twofold as well because no one person is ever going to own that, you know, genetic manipulation. So, like, InGen has it in the beginning, and they just create dinosaurs for a park. But what's to say someone else on the other side of the world, some nefarious organization, is going to get that technology, and they're going to create their own dinosaurs from that? You know, so it's going to happen everywhere. So it really does kind of create that moral quandary and that as well. And yeah, it does really kind of paint the picture of these animals, air quotes, have just as much a right to live as any other. Like, we created them. Just because they weren't born naturally, does that mean they have any less of a right to live? So there's really like a couple of different groups in this movie. They're like, yeah, they should die, we should wipe them out, we did the wrong thing. You know, this is nature correcting themselves. And then we've got the other side, like, look, they have a right to live. They're animals like any other. They should have the right, you know, just because we created them doesn't mean they don't deserve to live. So, yeah, that moral quandary in that is there, but it's hard because a lot of the times they kind of like, we want that these animals exist and they're gentle creatures and they just deserve to live, but then on the other side of that same coin, they want them to be scary predators or stampeding herds that we could get trampled by or eaten by. And, you know, it's kind of hard. They're kind of like walking that line, like, we want you to feel sorry for these animals and think they have a right to live, but at the same time, we need them to be scary and entertaining. So they're kind of trying to straddle that line there, like the filmmakers and stuff, and I don't think it necessarily works all the time, because you can't have, you know, straight up animals that we're gonna say, but, you know, they're really scary and want to eat you at the same time. So that kind of was kind of a push and pull in that regard in the film. And I think a lot of people will probably take that different ways in this movie. But there was one scene, it's probably the scene of the film where the volcano's erupting, everything's going to hell, the boat's pulling away, we've got what dinosaurs we can. There's this big, like, pyroclastic cloud coming down, and the characters look back toward the dock, and they see this brachiosaur walking out to the dock, like, looking at them, and it's making, like brachiosaur howls or whatever, and you just see this cloud coming with the orange glow and that coming out of it, and you just see this brachiosaur, like, it's obviously scared and stuff, and it just becomes immersed, and it's this real poignant moment, and you really feel sorry for, like, these animals, because, like, we did save some, but we couldn't save them all, you know. And then, like, yeah, it does bring you back to that, like, yeah, they're just animals, man, they deserve to live, like, just like any other animal would. But they throw in a callback there where, like, in the first film where Alan Grant, that they first see the brachiosaur, and it jumps up on its hind legs to reach the top leaves. They throw that in there, like, you see the silhouette of the brachiosaur, like, jumping up. I thought it was going to be scared. It would be a bit more frantic in that, and you would just see it topple over. But they did a throwback in that in there. It jumped up on its hind legs, and then you just saw the cloud just immerse it, and it disappear into the cloud. And that was it. And we got a couple of tears in that from Bryce Dallas Howard, and Chris Pratt was like, nah, shit, poor thing. You know, he kind of gave that look, like the look down, like, oh no, this is really sad. That poor brachiosaur. But you know what? We can't save them all, unfortunately. So let's talk about the acts of the film. So the first act is kind of very Jurassic Park-y. It's very action-oriented. We're on the island. We're trying to save these dinosaurs. And then we get to the second half. A little bit more meat. A lot of the characters get captured. All the dinosaurs get transported to the Lockwood Manor for the auction. And then we slowly start to ramp up into the third act where they're going to auction off the Indoraptor. It's a prototype. They don't really want to sell it. But then someone throws their hands up. Some Russian guy is like, 20 millions! And they're like, fuck yeah, let's just sell it anyway. So they sell off the Indoraptor. And they really sell it in this movie. The Indoraptor is incredibly intelligent. There's one scene where, because the Packy breaks Chris Pratt and that out, and then the Packy comes down the elevator, and it runs amok in the auction house, and scares all these people and that away. And then the Ted Levine, the hunter guy, he comes in and sees the Indoraptor, puts a couple of trank rounds in it, and then opens the cage door and goes in. But the Indoraptor's playing possum, and there's this scene where it's got its head down, and it's playing dead, for lack of a better term. And then it raises its tail up in the background, and you see him turn around to look at the tail, and then the Indoraptor opens its eyes, and it smiles. The Indoraptor kind of smiles, like, I'm clever, I'm gonna get ya. And then it does this for a bit more. And then it bites his fucking dude's arm off. Which was, I thought it would be more graphic, but then I remembered this movie was PG and it didn't really show any blood. Like, this Indoraptor, like, bit this dude's whole arm off and then swallowed it. You didn't see his bloody stump or anything like that. You didn't see any blood. And then he gets devoured. And then the Indoraptor is free. It breaks free and it goes running amok through the house and pretty much chasing Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, and this little girl called Maisie who lives in the house. She is James Cromwell's granddaughter. But there's a lot of stuff in the movie which kind of leads up to, like, because in the story is that her mother, James Cromwell's daughter, she was killed in a car accident. Now he's her guardian, and he's got this photo album he always looks at and stuff, and she asked, did my mum ever go to Jurassic Park? And he was like, once, and she would have done the same, saved all these animals and that. And I thought that they were going to reveal that Lex from the first film, like Lex and Tim, Lex, was her mother. And then that kind of like made me put together like, that would mean that James Cromwell was married to John Hammond's sister, and they had a divorce in the first film, which maybe what broke them up as a pairing. And I thought that would make good sense in that. That would be a good way to bring those characters back into this movie, and then maybe bring Tim back for the next movie or whatever. Who knows? But then we actually find out that Maisie, the little girl, the granddaughter, is actually a clone of his dead daughter. He recreated his daughter, cloned her from their cloning technology, and that's what drove him and John Hammond apart, because he didn't agree with him cloning his dead daughter. Which is kind of fucked, because it made me think about the timeline while I was sitting there. I was like, okay, cloning in that, they didn't necessarily, like 1993, so it probably would have been the late 80s. Maybe he didn't clone her to begin with, because this little girl's probably only about 10 or 12, maybe 13, and this movie takes place in 2018, so the time frame there doesn't really add up, so maybe he cloned her around about the mid-90s, he was studying it and trying to do it, and then eventually he did it after the whole Jurassic Park thing. So I'm like, okay, I can justify that. But then you have to tackle in this movie and that not only are there cloned, recreated dinosaurs, but now we have a cloned human in there as well, which kind of really threw me out of the movie. I'm like, okay, I can believe cloned dinosaurs and that, but now we have a cloned human. I have to believe that as well. So that was a little bit tough for me to accept. Anyway, the second half of the film, it's great gothic horror, lots of rain, lots of night, lots of storms, looks fucking great. The Indoraptor scenes are pretty cool, there's fights with Blue, it's all pretty great, and it kind of ends with all these dinosaurs that are in the lab are going to be killed because there's hydrogen cyanide leaking through the facility, and all the ventilation systems are out. They're trying to reboot them, but they can't do it. And these dinosaurs are going to die because they're all in these cages and stuff. So they get back to the control room and Claire's like, look, I can undo all the cages. She unlocks all the cages. All the dinosaurs get out. They're all congregating. The hydrogen cyanide's coming in. You think they're going to die. She's like, I can open the door and let them out. Remember, they're in California. They're back at the Americas. They're not on an island anymore. Chris Pratt even says that. He's like, Claire, if you open that door, there's no going back. Everything's going to change. We're not on an island anymore. And you think she's going to push the button, and then she decides not to. And I'm like, okay, because I thought she was going to press that button, and she was going to let all those dinosaurs out to roam free in the Americas, and that would have been it. That's what I expected to happen. I was like, you know what? That's a really good choice. That's a really mature choice. And then you hear click, and the door's open, and you turn around, and you've got Maisie, the little girl. She's opened the door, and her line is, she's like, I had to let them go because they were alive, like me, because they're all clones. And I'm like, ugh, really? So now all these dinosaurs are out roaming in the Americas. Ralphie Spall gets eaten by a T-Rex. Chris Pratt tries to get Blue. He's like, Blue, come with us. You'll be safe. We can take care of you. And then Blue runs out into the wild. You've got Allosauruses running out. You've got Brachiosaurs. You've got Gallimimus. You've got Ankylosaurus. They're out and roaming in America now. And then the final line at the end of the movie is the scene which is in the trailer where Ian Malcolm is talking about, you know, everything's gonna change. Everything's gonna change now. Like, welcome to Jurassic World. And you're like, you know what? That's exactly right. Like, the park's gone. Forget the parks. We're not going to have parks anymore. How's this franchise going to evolve? The world is literally Jurassic World now. So, in the next film, which we're definitely getting because they announced this sequel, Jurassic World 3, before this movie had come out months ago. We talked about it months ago on the show. And I guess it's going to tackle, like, you know, human and dinosaur, like, cohabitation. Like, obviously, other people in the world, they're going to make their own dinosaurs. You know, they hint that at the end. There's probably still all the military applications. People are going to want to create these dinosaurs and sell them and profit. So, there's not only these 10 or 12 dinosaurs which are now being released, there's going to be all these other dinosaurs which is going to be created. So, the next film, I guess we're really going to see, like, the world, like, now coexisting with dinosaurs running loose everywhere. And it kind of sucks because one of the final scenes at the end of the film is a scene they showed in the trailer where it's got the T-Rex side on and you've got the lion up on the rock, and they're kind of just roaring at each other. And you're like, that scene was in the trailer. Like, I forgot about it, but now that I've seen it, I was like, that was kind of, like, really super spoilery. Like, you probably shouldn't have showed that in the trailer. But anyway, what are you gonna do? So, as I wrap it up, what can I say about the movie? I liked it. I did. I liked it in more ways than some. It worked in ways better than the first film, but then worse. So, and by worse, I pretty much mean the two main characters, like Owen and Claire. They just didn't really go anywhere. And at the end of this movie, they pretty much ended up at the same point as they did at the end of the last film. So, it's kind of a quandary because I liked the character interaction in the first one better, but this one I liked more because it dared to do something different. It moved into like a gothic horror section, like a monster movie right at the end, like this haunted house where this creature is chasing you through the house. I loved that about this movie. And I liked it definitely trying to be something different. I think the next one is probably where it's really going to shine, because that's going to be the movie that we really haven't seen. Like, all the elements that are probably going to be in the next movie we haven't seen in the others. Like, dinosaurs loose in the real world. They're not on a secluded island out in Costa Rica anymore. You know, they're in the wild. They're in America. You know, the final shot of the movie is Blue running up like a rock face and standing on a cliff and overlooking a city and just like honk, honk, you know, doing the velociraptor like honk or call in the air. And that's how the movie ends. So I really think they can take the next one in a lot of cool places. How they're going to do it, I'm not really sure, because the interactions with Owen and Blue at the end of this movie are pretty much the same as the last one, so I imagine in the next one there's gonna have to be some repeat where Owen's got to find Blue again, or I don't know how that's gonna work. It's just gonna rehash like the same thing from the last two movies. That's probably one of the main things I think they're gonna rehash, because how are we gonna get these two, this raptor and this guy, back in the same room together, or back face to face together again without him going out and looking for her or whatever. But I think the next one will be interesting. Critics have been a bit 50-50 on this film, as you probably imagine, but audiences are loving it. Audiences love these Jurassic movies. They're eating it up worldwide. This movie is making all the money. It's been open, it opened last Thursday here, which means it's been open, 5 days? I don't think it's opened in America yet. I think it opens like a week or two after we get it, but at this stage, it's made $715 million worldwide. Hasn't even been out for a week yet. That's more money. That's almost double the money that Solo has made after a month. So this movie is probably easily going to make $1.5 billion, maybe more. So yeah, the next movie is definitely a guarantee. Colin Trevorrow's back to direct the next one after directing the first film. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with the next one. But yeah, I'll definitely go see it. I didn't hate this movie. Some aspects were just undercooked. A lot of the set pieces and that were pretty cool. I really like the opening, where they go for the Indominus bone and stuff with the Mosasaur and that, and the T-Rex in the dark with their helicopter and stuff. That was really cool. But yeah, on the whole, I liked it. It's probably a medium plus for me, so it's probably 3.5 out of 5. But yeah, this movie's going to look phenomenal on 4K when it comes out. Like, especially the second half. All the blacks and the rain and that really great CG on the Indoraptor. And just the rain and that coming through your sound system. And all those roaring and sound effects, windows smashing, guns firing. It's going to be great. And if this first one is anything to go by, the transfer will be beautiful. The audio will be beautiful. So I don't doubt that it's going to be great. So look forward to that, all you 4K Blu-ray owners out there. Alright then, that was my super spoiler episode for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. What did you guys think of Jurassic World? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you like this franchise? Do you want it to just leave it? Do you want to keep going? Who knows? Like, tell me. Hit me back. You can find us online. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/BeardedGeeksPod. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at BeardedGeeksPod. And if you want to hit us up, hit me up on Twitter at BeardedGeeksPod. Tell me what you thought about Jurassic World. If you want to listen to the show, you can find it on YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Support the show, guys. We love it. We love what you do. And we love hearing from you. We really do. Next week, we should be lining up something pretty cool. I'm working on that at the moment. Hopefully it's going to come together, but if it doesn't happen next week, forget I even mentioned this, and it'll happen in the next few weeks. But yeah, got something cool lined up for next week. Hope you guys dig it. So that's all from me, Jags, the Beardmaster. I guess I'll see you all next week on the Bearded Geeks. Hey!